Hello, Yankel. Welcome.
Good morning, Fitz. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, grateful. So I want to introduce you to the viewers and listeners of this conversation. This is Yankel Meislin, a close friend and a client and a supporter. Yankel and I go back a bunch of years. We're both Soferim, and I've written Stam for Yankel, and we've worked together on perfecting the skill and craft of writing Stam. And we've also been working together over the last year. Yankel has hired me, and we're working together in a relationship to create one's state of being and new results in our lives and in the world. So this has been a very beautiful journey, and I'm grateful, Yankel, for it. And I would love for you to get to share with whoever's listening what this work is really about for you. So I guess I would ask, where were you before we began to do this creative work? Where are you now? And where are you heading? And I think that that question can be answered on two levels. One is like one's own internal state, one's worldview, one's perception of reality, what person believes is to be true and false. And then there's results, like concrete results in your life, in the world that are being created. So where were you before we began to work together? What has changed for you through the work, through the creative perspective, through the coaching work itself, internally and externally? And what are you working on for the future to create? So that's how I would ask it.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me and taking the time to speak with me this morning. I appreciate it very much. So I started off as a Sofer who sells to the retailers. That's where I was in the very beginning, before we started our conversation, before we started our journey together. And in that time that I was working with the retailers, I was bound to the rules of the retailers. And that means that I believed that there is such a thing called market value. I believe that there is a price that my mezuzahs are worth, that the retailers will pay me for, and that there is a cap to how much my mezuzahs are worth, based on what the retailers deem they will sell it for. So, for example, my mezuzahs were being sold at $180 when we started, and granted, I was also working with you together at that time to improve my ksav so that it would raise in price. And I did a few things that were pretty instrumental, like, for example, changing from double sirtut, which made the ksav appear, I guess, in my mind, more straight, and it looked and made it a little bit easier. But I lost a lot of the fluidity that was available to me. And I also changed to Avedas Yad Klaf. I changed to Diochanan Selatu ink. So I did a few things during that time to improve the quality of my ksav and the quality of the products that I was using, and started to change my perspective on how I view my relationship with the retailers. Because, of course, if they're selling my mezuzah at 180, I'm not getting 170 for them. I am getting a much lower percent of that, and I didn't feel that it justified the work that I put into it. I mean, on one hand, I was using Avedas Yad Klaf, the ink according to the formula of the Alter Rebbe, and getting tutored by an amazing teacher at the same time, and paying for it. And here I am with the result is that I'm getting paid at a much lower price than I would feel comfortable making while writing. So that was where I was at when we started off our conversation. And through the conversation, I came to realize that market value is a made up constriction that I put on myself, and that many people do, because the true market value is really what somebody is willing to pay for your product, not what someone else deems fit. So for example, I saw that in Miami, there's an art gallery that they're selling a banana duct taped to a wall for $150,000. Now, I could go buy a banana from a wall, and I could go buy a roll of duct tape for under $10, or maybe even under $5, if they let me buy a single banana and not a bunch, and put it up on my wall. And there you go, $150,000 art piece on my wall for under $5. So how is it that the market value, quote unquote, of a banana and duct tape equates to $150,000? And the answer is because obviously the painter has some kind of special talent that differentiates his banana and duct tape from everyone else's, and people are willing to pay $150,000 for his specific duct tape banana on the wall. And if that's true about a banana on the wall, how much more so is that true about a mezuzah that's not only a quote unquote art piece, lahavdil elef havdalas, but it's also the protection for the person whose home it is that has it on their door, and the conduit for their brachas. So if I really want to justify my work, then I felt that I should be paid accordingly. And so I decided to raise my prices to where I felt like I was doing justice to the work that I had put in through 10 years worth of being a Sofer. And the culmination of everything from the time that I started and breaking Kol Muslim and not knowing that there's such a thing as Medalel, to where I am now and writing, Mehuder Dik Alter Rebbe Mezuzahs and Tefillin. And in terms of where I would like to go,
so they were selling. So 1 second, let me just jump in here for a second. You were so they had been being sold for 180, and obviously that you were only getting a percentage of that. And what did you raise your fees to?
Right. At first I raised them, the first few mezuzahs that I did after I stopped using double sirtut and started using Vedas Yad and Diochanan, I sold at 250, and I had quite a few sales at that price. And afterwards I raised the price to 300 as the Ksav got even more meduyak and nice, I guess you could call it. So now I'm selling them for 300.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
And so and I know we're working together, so let's be totally open about this, that as you've raised your prices, right? So that the amount of sales has slowed down, right?
True. That is true.
So here it's kind of like there's the internal piece that you're describing of seeing your work in a different light, of seeing your mezuzah like the artist who taped that banana on the wall saw it to sell it for $150,000. And then there's something else over here, which is really, you spoke to it a little bit, but I would love to hear you speak about it more, which is when a Sofer moves from selling exclusively to retailers, right, to then opening themselves up and sharing of themselves with the broader community, right? So that's its own kind of process and trajectory and growth involved, right? So and it doesn't just like happen overnight that when a person decides, okay, I want to sell to the broader community, like everyone's knocking on their door, right? So there's like some creative work that's involved in that. So can you speak to that?
Sure. Okay, so this is something that certainly is an internal struggle for me, because on the one hand, obviously I would like to sell my my product or my my mezuzahs and tefillin to the community. But on the other hand, it's hard to put in the work to actually do it. And yeah, it would be almost not inconceivable, but it would be silly to think that, after going out on my own for just a few months, that I would have hundreds and hundreds of orders, because the truth of the matter is that how many people even know that I'm a Sofer when they see me walking down the street and whatnot? They don't really, nobody really knows, in fact, who I am and what I do, unless I put it out there. So as you mentioned that we had spoken previously about the three aspects of service. One is having a service to provide, which in this case would be tefillin and mezuzahs, which is in fact a service to the people who use them. And two is letting people know about the service, which is sort of what this video is a conduit for. And three is the culmination of that, of those two, which is the sale and the transaction of the services for a fee. So that the last two numbers, 2 and 3, are, well, more like 2 is the hardest one for me, because I have to put myself out there and I have to make myself somewhat vulnerable to opinionated opinions, and people can say very easily, how dare you sell your mezuzah for $300 and it's not worth it, and it's not this and it's not that. And yeah, that's something that has to be contended with. But on the other hand, I have a banana on my wall that's $150,000. So I don't, but somebody does. And so, this is what I want to sell it for. If you want to go buy from the retailers at a lower price for somebody who you don't know, and you have no idea what went into his mezuzah, okay, fine. I know what I have. I don't know what they have, what he did, and so forth. And I'm comfortable with that.
So who do you need to be? Who do you really need to be inside that inspires and that really fuels moving from the first stage of providing your service, which is having a product, to stage 2, which is really sharing of yourself and about your product in the world? Because that's stage 2 is what's going to make the difference if you can actually move to selling to people other than retailers, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And it's an adjustment, right? Because when
Yes.
you're working for the retailer, you don't need to, no one questions you, no one challenges you, there's no opposition, there's no threat, there's no nothing. And when you go into the world and say, hey, I have this beautiful thing and here's the fee, you open yourself up to encountering all kinds of resistance or challenges. True. Or whatever. So what is that? How do you create yourself on the inside that then empowers that just sharing of yourself into the world?
Well, first thing is that I would like to just amend what you said slightly, which is that it could be that you could have resistance from the retailers. For example, if you were to say, I want a certain price for my mezuzahs, and they don't see fit, then they won't buy it. Simple as that. And with regard to the public, it's more, I would say that the struggle is more knowing how to get it out and actually doing it, in addition to changing how you view yourself on the inside. There also is the action part about actually doing it, because even if I was to think extremely highly of myself but sat around and did nothing about selling my mezuzahs, then I would still be in the same situation. So it's a combination of both of those things. One being viewing myself differently, and two being actually doing something, a proactive approach to getting the message out there. So change, but one is sort of a prerequisite for the other, because if you don't have the confidence in what you're doing and you don't actually believe what you're doing is true, then it's very hard to get your message, you know, what mashi yetzeh min halev nichnas el halev. So it's very hard to get your message to the public if you don't yourself believe in it. So some of the things that I do to cultivate this belief in myself, and there was a very interesting ayem yem within the last month about the Baal Shem Tov, who said that every yid is I think it was an Eretz Sia, and that you have to cultivate the Eretz Chefetz, yeah, that you have to cultivate this feeling within a yid. So I took that personally to mean that I have to cultivate this feeling within inside me, and you know, I internalized that to my safras. And what I do is I have declarations that I say on a daily basis to reaffirm my belief in myself, because you know, it's not easy to get knocked down and it feels horrible, but nonetheless I have to push through. So I say, for example, to myself that I am a master safer. I am that my mezuzahs are the conduit for the brachas that come to my customers' homes. I am that my mezuzahs are both expensive and cheap at the same time, because at the core of what we are doing in actuality, we are providing, you know, a mezuzah. Not the sefer is the conduit, but the mezuzah itself is providing the brachas and the protection for the customers' homes. Now, in actual reality, would you pay for a security system, whatever it was, infinite amount, if you thought that that was going to be the full proof to keep you safe? Of course you would. So it applies in this case as well.
And what are that's really powerful. I mean, as you said that, I could feel that. Like, my mezuzahs are expensive and cheap. Like, I love that. Because it really honors what the mezuzah is, you know, and in both ways. It's like, it's cheap because the mezuzah is actually infinite, you know, infinitely valuable. And it's expensive because it's a strong fee and it helps people really appreciate it. You know, so
That's
it's like
true.
That paradox really is very potent. And so what are the actions involved? Like, what action does a person need to take, in your experience, in order to share of themselves in the world?
So before I started our conversations, I would be very reserved. And at that time, of course, I was still selling to the retailer, so I didn't really have to put in any of this kind of work, but I would be very reserved and not sort of promote myself in any way. I never put up a status on WhatsApp or went on to any other social media content to promote myself in any way. And you know, I would just sort of go from work to my office, from work to the mikveh, to shul, to the office, and you know, not really have very many interactions, because every second that I was not at work was time lost from making, you know, the little money that I did make, or whatever, you know, comparatively speaking. So in order to grow and truly be independent of the retailers, so to speak, has required me to put myself out there. That's the main thing. People have to know, in order to want my services, that I have a service to provide. So putting up statuses on WhatsApp and videos and other social media networks, and just speaking it, letting people know, and sending people messages with the intent that I want people to know that I am a safer, and this is the service that I provide.
And do you see that activity only as a means to an end? Like, I need money. The only way for me to get that money is if I go ahead and take those actions and tell people about it. So it's like almost like a necessary evil. Or is there actually like an end to itself? Is there some kind of purpose, or is there some kind of is there some kind of intrinsic value in taking that action?
So that's a great question. It's something that I have sort of recently come to the realization about, that serving someone else, in that I am offering them is not only beneficial to me because they're buying it from me and I get to provide for my family, but it's also beneficial for them. So it depends on how you view this service. If you view the service that you're providing as, this is solely for me, then yeah, that can eat you up. Who wants to go sell themselves, so to speak? But if you view your service as a service that you're providing, this is like a benefit to the community in a certain type of way, and not really, in a way, that is what it is. You're benefiting the community in that whoever purchases your mezuzah has a mehudadik mezuzah on their door that's protecting their homes and being the conduit for their brachas.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I can share also from my own experience, like the work that I put in to share of myself in the world, right? And to let people know that I have something to give them. I see that actually as in its own right fulfilling, like a fulfillment of my purpose. Because the Baal Shem Tov said that for so it's like, okay, so I'm here to help, right? So listen, some people are going to receive it and some people are not. Some people are going to want it and some people are not. But if I'm here to help, then it kind of makes sense to me that I actually begin to fulfill on my purpose by being in the world and not hiding and letting people know I'm here to help. So I actually create intrinsic meaning in that activity, right? Whether they bite whether they're the right fit for the thing that I'm offering or not. But I experience that I'm fulfilling on my own purpose through taking that action and not withholding in fear or shame or anxiety.
And the reason why I came to you to have this conversation in the first place is because I want to emulate your example. And that's who I want to be. I
Beautiful.
see in the way that you represent yourself, how I would like to represent myself in the world.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And you've been doing that. You've been doing that. We have this expression, right? From raisin to grape. So, and there's other things also that you haven't even spoken about over here, like you're sharing your story, speaking, so since we're talking about sharing of yourself in the world, like, tell us about that.
So I have, a sort of interesting past. Right now, I'm working on writing, I guess, what you might consider to be an autobiography about what happened to me and how did I get to where I am today, because it's certainly interesting. And part of my mission in this world, at least that's how I view it, is to share of my story and to let people know that no matter how far down you have gone and things seem very bleak and hopeless and almost at the brink of never return, that you can always bounce back. You can always get back up. And so recently, within the last month, I had the opportunity to share my story twice at two different yeshivas in Pennsylvania. And that was an awesome experience. At the first place that I went to, which was in the Poconos, I verbrang with the boys for about 4.5 hours, nonstop, with not even one niggin in between. I just told my story, and it's fairly detailed and long, and it was amazing. They were extremely receptive and interactive and whatnot. But I think to the point that you're trying to get to is that there's two aspects here. One is that people have to know that I have a story to tell. and two is the actual and providing the story. So in the service of being able to share my story, it was sort of it was a very Ashkacha Pratis event that happened. I was walking down the street a few nights before Pesach. My wife asked me to get something from the supermarket. I wear a mask outside, and a car pulls up to me 10:30 at night, and a kid gets out of the car and he says, "Rabbi Meislin." And I turned around, and he, I guess, had noticed, he had recognized me through my mask, and he said, "I'm a shliach in the Poconos, in the yeshiva that used to be in Wilkes-Barre, and the boys are in town. Would you be interested in Farbrengen for them?" And I said, how do you know who I am? He said, "I was at a Farbrengen that you gave in Queens 6 years ago." And so, one thing led to another, and eventually I made it to the yeshiva to Farbrengen for the boys. And that story sort of showed me how powerful it is to let people know that you have a story you have a service to provide, and Hashem sort of does the rest.
And that was paid work, wasn't it?
That was paid work, yes. That was
I'm pointing that out especially because that's one of the things that you're creating, is speaking professionally. Right?
That's true. That's another one of my professions, is to go and share my story, of course, for a fee.
Beautiful. So it's interesting because through sharing your story at the Farbrengen years ago, this person recognizes you and asks you to come back, right? So it's like how sharing of ourselves, it's like mitzvah gereres mitzvah, right? The more we kind of give of ourselves into the world, the more opening is created in the world for that to come through. Yeah. So what else? We should wrap up in a couple.
Even more so, I would. Yeah, we'll wrap up. Yeah, but even more so, what you're saying is that I had also been seeking out and wanting to do that type of work, which was another type of opening for a creation. Because had I been just sitting back and not really interested in doing that, then I probably wouldn't have ended up doing it. Because why bother traveling so far away and Farbrengen for such a long time? And I slept over there, and my wife had to take the kids to school by herself and whatnot. Why should I inconvenience myself? And I missed work the next day and all that. But because I specifically had wanted to search to do that, it was a part of what I wanted to create, that the opening sort of the creation came to being.
Right. So you're speaking to a very interesting point that I think sometimes is hard for people to get, but like through actually having an intention and a desire, and then speaking to it, right, and working on it and taking action towards it, that itself like allows for that thing to show up for us, and we see it and we're ready for it and we respond to it, and it materializes.
Exactly. My intention made the creation, so to speak.
Right. The Baal Shem Tov talks a lot about that also, about how our thoughts and our speaking actually bring forth possibilities in the world, because there's a relationship between the Shechina and Dibur. So would you like to share anything else? What about self-care? What about the basketball game or any other stuff?
So one of the things that I found to be particularly important to my overall well-being is finding time to do something for myself. A lot of times, especially, as a Sofer, we can get caught up in the rat race. And I guess that could be true for many jobs, but we get caught up in the rat race and there's no real time to slow down. And I never really get to take vacations because I'm paid by, the work that I do. I don't really have the opportunity to go take long extended breaks, but something that I found to be very necessary and helpful to the quality of my work and my overall state of being is to take some time for myself in order to enjoy myself. Just take a break, relax. And so for me, I particularly like playing basketball, so that's something that I was able to accomplish, I guess you could call it. And I got a chance to play, and I was sore for the next 3 days, but the feeling was amazing. I felt, rejuvenated and relaxed, and that I had done something good in the service of myself at this for once.
And we did some fun stuff together too, just having a good time.
Right, exactly.
But it's interesting because I find that through taking out that time to give ourselves something nurturing, something wholesome, it's not work related, it actually, I find that it energizes my life, my creativity. It opens me up more, and it allows for my software work to come through me more effectively. It allows for me to think more clearly. So it's the context for it is the service of God. Even though the content of it doesn't necessarily look so holy, like in basketball.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. When I'm able to take care of myself, then I feel like my performance all around improves because of that. Even though it seems counterintuitive, because on the one hand I missed a whole morning of work, but on the other hand I gained the peace of mind that allowed me to produce that whole week, whatever I was able to produce.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing of yourself with me and with the world. Is there anything you want to finish off with? Anything you want to say to the listeners, the viewers, the world?
I would like to say that that a few things. One is that a lot of times we're unaware of our effect on the world. Sometimes at a later stage, we'll find out about it, or maybe not even at all. But without a doubt, that every action that we take has some kind of impact. And for example, I saw that with the Verbrengen that I gave 6 years ago that led to the Verbrengen of today. And in addition to that, I would say that belief in oneself and cultivating that and taking action towards that direction will always, without a doubt, lead to a good, positive, and beneficial result. We may not see it today or tomorrow, but there is no question that it will eventually come. And sometimes, patience is the key, but you'll get there.
Beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Yankel, for sharing of yourself. I love you, and whoever else is listening. We're doing a 6-month journey. It's actually going to be 7 months. 7 months journey, 7 guys, including myself, 7 Sofer, including myself, where we're going to be supporting each other to cultivate and create who we are, how we see ourselves, how we see our world, and then taking the actions that then open up for us accordingly and creating the results that we're after in increasing our income, well-being, spiritual, material, in and out of Safros. I'm going to be in the circle. Yankel's going to be in the circle. Other amazing Sofer are in the circle. And we're going to be starting that very soon. So if you'd like to be in a conversation, either with me or with Yankel or whatever, be in touch, reach out. Are you available? I did that without permission, Yankel. Are you available to talk to people if they want to talk to you?
Sure.
Okay, great.
I'm at your service.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think it's a service to them.
True. Not you. I mean, I'm saying I'm at
Oh,
your
yeah,
service,
great,
as in
good,
to the
good.
public. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we look forward to being in connection and in communication. All right, Yankel, have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Atzlacha.
Bye-bye.
Bye.